is there room for a third category of device in the middle? Something that's between a laptop and a smartphone, and we call it the iPad.
It's hard to believe that today, April 3rd, marks the 7th year since the original iPad was released. It's been a long journey. We've seen so many iPads since then. And now in 2017, we have the new 9.7-inch iPad. Let's take a look at what's changed, what's evolved. How far has the iPad come since its introduction in 2010? Now, when it was originally released, it was ridiculed a lot. It was considered to be by some a bigger iPhone and by most completely useless. However, oh how wrong they were. Now, from a design standpoint, this thing screams Steve Jobs. It follows a lot of his design language, and it's seriously such a beautiful device just to look back on. It's got a very retro vibe to it. Now, the new one, of course, is much more evolved. It's a much sleeker looking device, something that comes in 3 colors, gold, space gray, and silver instead of just your plain silver. Now, that one is very light, thin, and by today's standards, some people even complain that it's too thick and heavy. This thing is like a feather compared to the old one. This thing is heavy, thick, and chunky, and it really shows its age today. But still, I can't help but appreciate the design of this thing. And yeah, using it with one hand is very difficult, but still, it's somewhat comfortable if you have massive hands. Even from the front, this thing really screams old. Look at those bezels. They're at least 2 to 3 times larger than this base model iPad. We're supposed to receive a new iPad later this year with almost no bezel, but still this thing looks old just from those alone. Not to mention you get in real close and you can start to make out all of those pixels. The display is nowhere near as sharp as the new one. You can fit 4 of the old iPad's display into the new one pixel wise, and this is vice versa. Now, although this new iPad is considered a budget iPad, its display is still miles better than the old one. The colors pop a lot more, the reflectivity is a lot better on this display, but the one thing it shares a similarity with the old one, which I don't like, is the fact that the screen isn't laminated together. There's a gap, which is really off-putting and very old technology. And getting to use these things, the new iPad is on iOS 10.3.1, the old one on 5.1.1. It first shipped with 3.2 though. Now, the interesting thing is that the new one gives you more storage back from a 32 gig device versus the old one. Very interesting. Now, the overall interface, you're going to notice a lot of similarities here. While the new iPad may look a lot cleaner, the old one, it's still pretty much all there, just clumped together instead of in separate areas. The wallpaper section makes more sense as it combines display and wallpaper into one instead of on the new iPad, there's separate sections. And man, take a look at this nostalgia here, that Steve Jobs jean wallpaper. And this is back in the day when Apple used to actually give you wallpapers instead of taking them all away. iOS 10 is clean, flat, and a lot more boring than iOS 5 for sure. This one is skeuomorphic. It's got that design language where it has sort of a fake depth inside. There are textures where there aren't on iOS 10. You know, you can tell this is designed by Steve Jobs and Johnny Ives back in the day. And it's a lot of fun to play around with this now that we have this boring OS today. Not that that's a bad thing. The new iPad has all of those fancy features like slide over and split screen multitasking, which is all cool, but in practice it's not that great on this new iPad. Picture-in-picture freezes on my iPad for whatever reason. I have no idea why. So, you know, the old one is pretty reliable in comparison to this one. Now, YouTube was built in back in the day, which is pretty cool. It doesn't work anymore, but you know, it would be awesome if it did. Maps was Google Maps, so that is really cool. Overall, just, you know, comparing these applications, old and new, is really fun. It's so familiar. Oh my gosh. Damn, this new song is a hit. Now let's see the handy dandy iPad that seems to work always. I won't wait this time. Sweet deal. That's what I like, reliable, stuff you can count on. The first iPad used Apple's first in-house processor, the Apple A4. It was rated at 1 GHz with a measly 256 megabytes of RAM. As you can see, 472 score versus 4428 on the new iPad with the Apple A9. That one is surprisingly capable. So on this iPad, you're going to play games like this, mostly 2D games as the graphical performance was terrible. You know, actually playing a 3D racing game, the frame rate is awful. Pixels are like PS1 level, so this thing couldn't game worth crap. The new one, on the other hand, is a very capable device. It's actually almost on the level of the iPad Pro, as it has the A9 instead of the A9X. So pretty much anything you download from the App Store, this thing can run very smoothly and with, a lot of effects. Not as good as the iPad Pro, but I have no complaints. Actual scores, oh my goodness, this thing is terrible in a 3D benchmark. So battery life, surprisingly, is exactly the same. Apple advertised 10 hours of usage, general usage, with the new iPad and with the old one, even though the battery size is different. Actual results did vary. It wasn't that good. Wi-Fi speed wasn't terrible. It had 802.11n series Wi-Fi, which is good. The browser seems to be broken for most websites. I have no idea why, but it just won't load stuff. Maybe it's not compatible anymore. Actually, unlocking this thing, I was surprised to find it's exactly the same without a passcode to unlock it, just with the slide to unlock versus Touch ID. So that was a little surprising for me to see. And I wanted to take a moment to put things into perspective. It is 2017, 7 years since the iPad was released, and we still have no damn calculator, weather, or stocks app that's built in to iOS for the iPad. What in tarnation, Apple? Why? You have to download a third-party one from the App Store. Does it really take 7 years to develop a calculator? Now, how about them cameras? In the new one, we've got the new 8 megapixel sensor, which by new I mean is found in the iPhone 5S. On the old one, we got the no camera series, so, pretty much comparing it, I don't think it's a very fair test here. Extra detail in there. Check out my cocks. No, actually, we don't have any roosters right now. But yeah, definitely much more detail, as the iPad is only capable of 1080p here. And was curious to see the sound output. On the old one, it was muddled, but still clear and very distinguishable. The new one was louder, but broken out of the box, as you heard. Now, we know that the new one is better, but in what way is the old one better? It does have a dedicated switch for the silent on-off button that you can dedicate to orientation lock, which is actually pretty cool. The volume HUD is more transparent than in iOS 10. It doesn't actually obstruct your stuff, and there's a slideshow feature from the lock screen that Apple seems to have made disappear on the newer versions. It also does have YouTube and Google Maps embedded into iOS out of the box, so that is super cool and pretty much the only advantages this thing has. I wondered what happens if you plug in Apple Pencil in. What if Steve Jobs, despite his hating on styluses, hid this feature into this thing? So using an adapter, let's go ahead and plug in the Apple Pencil into my 2010 Apple iPad, and no prompt, but still have hope here. No, so pretty much couldn't get that to work. The new one doesn't support it either, so that's pretty much fair there. And I know exactly what you guys are thinking. Which of these is more susceptible to electromagnetic interference? Let's find out. I don't think I've had a winner on that one. But guys, I just wanted to say this new iPad is an absolute bargain. When released, the original was worth $560 in today's money. Now this thing is $329 and you're getting so much for your money. So I hope you guys enjoyed this retro comparison, old versus new. Be sure to check out the iPhone one and stay tuned for more. Peace.